I am Roger Nettleton, a member of the Board of Trustees, and I welcome you to this Sunday service at the UU Church of Columbia. I'm what I like to think of as a gracefully aging older man with white hair and wearing a red shirt this morning. We are a congregation of many beliefs, striving together to embody courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. We are so glad that you are all here with us this morning. We offer a live stream of our services and extend a warm welcome to those who are joining us online. We strive to make our worship accessible, and you can find an accessible order of service with hymn lyrics included in our homepage at uucomo.org. There are listening assistive devices with our ushers near the entrance to our sanctuary. If you are on Zoom and can click the CC buttons for subtitles, feel free to do so. We also have a scent-free section over on this side, in the front 2 rows of the east side of the sanctuary, and ask that those seats be reserved for those with chemical sensitivities and those not using scented products. As usual, masks are very welcome, celebrated, and optional. We'd like to particularly welcome any visitors among us this morning and invite you to find our Visitor Connect book in the greeting area or in the chat, or use the QR code in your order of service. We would very much like to stay in touch with you. Children and babies are always welcome in worship, and we have nursery care in the lower level for our youngest ones, as well as a lively children's program for all ages. Children will be invited to these classes after our centering moment and song. Now, let us settle into this time and place with the help of our choir, directed by Violet Vanderhaar and accompanied by Neil Minturn.
Good morning. Good morning. It's so wonderful to see so many faces here. You made it on Daylight Savings Time Sunday. You're not an hour late, you're here. I'm the Reverend Molly Housh Gordon, the minister of this congregation. I am a pale-skinned white woman with red hair that's very long on one side and very short on the other. And today I'm wearing a houndstooth blazer that has silver sequins sprinkled across it. And before I give our opening words this morning, I have a brief announcement, which is that this Sunday is the conclusion of the loud formal part of our annual giving drive. The theme this year has been Breaking Bread, Growing Love, and it's been a really fun experience, and we have one last fun piece of the campaign, which is to do a bread-related service project after church. We'll be packaging up bread portions for the Columbia Mobile Aid Mobile Soup Kitchen. So if you'd like to stay and help pack up bread in single-serving portions, those will go out tomorrow with the soup kitchen to our unhoused friends and neighbors across the city of Columbia, remembering that the ministry of our congregation is not just for us, but is for the wider community as well. Thank you to everyone who has pledged to sustain our congregation. Thank you to those of you who are remembering right now, oh, I need to go do that, and will pledge later this morning. And thank you to our stewards also, who will be following up with folks over the next week or so. We are so grateful to be sustained by one another. So our opening words are by the poet Mark Nepo. In the beginning, I thought I was going somewhere. I thought we all were. But falling in while trying to cross, I finally understood. The journey is to follow the river. All the rivers, especially the ones no one can see. The soul is a fish whose home is in those rivers. So I can take you across if you want, but the secret is to go everywhere by going nowhere. And I will be here when you fall in, which is not a failure, but an awakening. So let us gather this morning to wander and to flow. Let us gather to fall in together to the stream of life, to lay back and float. Let us gather to go nowhere and everywhere, and let us make our way forward through this life in wonder.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Gretchen Mowney, one of our worship associates. My pronouns are she and they. I am a blind, white, pale-skinned elder millennial with short, blue-streaked brown hair, and I am wearing a black blazer, plum top, and silver leaf necklace. As our chalice is lit, will you please join me in the words of affirmation printed in your order of service? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Jamila Batchelder, the Director of Religious Education here. I am a middle-aged white woman with lots of dark blonde hair and glasses, wearing a black blazer and a red scarf, and once again, really cool boots. Sort of my trademark. So, before I was a Director of Religious Education, I was an ecologist. In particular, I was an ecologist of urban streams. Streams in cities, packed between buildings and houses and parking lots. And streams in cities, well, they're kind of a mess. Because places where a lot of humans live, the way that we usually want to do things is to try to set everything in place all controlled, all permanent. And water, well, water's not something easily controlled. Streams want to twist and turn and change. Water erodes here, deposits there, always shifting. The scientific word for the curves in a stream they're called meanders. And meanders are constantly shifting through the landscape. It doesn't match well with traditional urban planning. And so humans would like to think we are more powerful than natural processes, and most especially if you're a member of the Army Corps of Engineers. The Corps for years did battle with streams, trying to wrestle them into their control, keeping them from shifting around, wanting them to be where humans decided they should be. If you straighten a stream out and then, encased it in cement, a process that we call channelization, the problem solved, right? I'll actually like to show an image of what that looks like. This is the Los Angeles River. And this was done to streams all over the country, particularly in my home state of California. So it may come as a surprise, but this did not work out so well. It certainly didn't work out great for the ecology of these streams, as I'm sure you can imagine. It also didn't work out well for the cities in many ways. Straightening out a stream speeds up the water, giving it less time to seep into the earth, and which can lead to excess flooding. And also that fast-moving water, full of energy and empty of sediment, since it can't erode the cement very well, has so much potential sediment it could carry. I remember one of my professors would refer to it as hungry water. And as soon as it finds any place capable of erosion, it just goes to town, literally, with so much more ferocity than it would have if we hadn't messed with it. And I think it also harmed people on a spiritual level. It's hard to feel in relationship with the land, with the watershed, when it looks like this. So now urban planners try to work with streams in a different way, and even try to restore streams that have been channelized. Show an image of another stream I studied. This is Saucil Creek in Oakland. The number one thing that we talk about doing when we're trying to make a healthy stream is to give it space. Space to meander, space to make a path that is unexpected and ever-shifting. Letting go of controlling the water, and instead letting the water find its own way. So for our centering, I want to let us meander. So close your eyes and breathe in, and as you breathe out, open to spaciousness. Space to move, space to change. Space to seep in, and space to flood. Let your head and neck relax, and imagine yourself floating. Let go of control a little bit and feel yourself carried. Carried to the unexpected, around bends, sometimes moving faster, sometimes slower, through cool shade and into sunshine, sparkling off water. Can you let yourself slow down and release the need for efficiency? Not the shortest distance between 2 points, but perhaps the more beautiful distance, the more interesting, the path with more to discover. Let us meander together. Let us wonder at the beauty of it all together. And let us wander together. Please join me in singing our centering hymn.
Now, during a moment of contemplative music, I invite you into our weekly ritual of stones and water. Those of you with us online are invited into a time of contemplation during quiet music, and you may wish to share your joy or sorrow in the chat to be spoken aloud during our time of prayer. For those here in the sanctuary, you are welcome to come forward and take a stone, representing any of the hopes and fears that you bring with you this morning, and drop the stone into the water, which represents the embrace of our community. Those of you in person who wish to have your joy or sorrow spoken aloud may write it on a slip of paper at the back table to be shared during our time of prayer. Let us now share this time of stones and water.
And in the words of the poet Joy Harjo, let us continue in contemplation. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments steadily growing and in languages that aren't always sound but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this. And breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty. In beauty. The words of the poet Joy Harjo. Let us now sing our hymn of response, Down in the River to Pray. The words are in your order of service. It's not one that's in our hymnal, but it's a familiar traditional American folk tune, and you'll pick it up. I think we'll sing it a couple of times through. And let's remain seated in a contemplative posture.
Love Like Water by Mark Nepo. Water, in its clear softness, fills whatever hole it finds. It is not skeptical or distrusting. It does not say, "This gully is too deep," or "That field is too open." Like water, the miracle of love is that it covers whatever it touches, making the touched thing grow while leaving no trace of its touch. Most things break instead of transform because they resist. The quiet miracle of love is that without our interference, it, like water, accepts whatever is tossed or dropped or placed into it, embracing it completely. Of course, we are human and are easily hurt if not loved back or if loved poorly. But we waste so much of life's energy deliberating who and what shall be worthy of our love, when, in the deepest elemental sense, these choices are not in our province any more than rain can choose what it shall fall upon. In truth, the more we let love flow, the more we have to love. This is the inner glow that sages and saints of all ages seem to share, the wash of their love over everything before them, not just people, but birds and rocks and flowers and air. Beneath the many choices we have to make, love, like water, flows back into the world through us. It is the one great secret available to all. Yet somewhere, the misperception has been enshrined that to withhold love will stop hurt. It is the other way around. As water soaks scars, love soothes our wounds. If open to, love will accept the angrily thrown stone, and our small tears will lose some of their burn in the great ocean of tears, and the arrow released to the bottom of the river will lose its point. Only love, with no thought of return, can soften the point of suffering.
You say your heart's been turned to stone. You say you wanna be left alone. You say love only ever made you weep and moan. Well, let me tell you something that you know in your bones. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock.
You say your soul's like a dry riverbed. Stop waiting for the water long ago. You said you better pray all night for the rain instead. Love comes like a tidal wave over your head. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock.
Say waiting for love, it takes too long. It goes to sharpen mind, but weakens the strong. Well, you may be right, but you may be wrong. 'Cause love can make a mountain go tumbling down.
Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock.
Well, the river washes over every living human. We got our feet in the gravel and mud in our hands. Nothing can stop love's command. Every boulder turns into a grain of sand.
Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock.
Does anyone know where we're going? Like in this life, in this moment, in this culture, on this earth, does anyone know where we're going? Did you get a road map? Have you found signs along the way? Who's driving the bus? Where are all the grown-ups? Who knows where we're going? Who knows where we're going? I don't know where this whole thing leads. I don't know which sea opens out ahead of our streaming along. How do we move when we don't know where we're going? It's an eons-old existential question, but to me, it also feels like a very present one, a very present question in this moment of climate chaos and political upheaval and even COVID-era church culture. We don't know where we're going. We have wandered off the map. We are living together in what's called a liminal time, a betwixt and between time, when one world is crumbling and another or more than one other are blooming and building, and there are parts of us in all of these worlds at once, which is not entirely comfortable. There is part of us in an economy that's crumbling, and perhaps there are parts of us in regenerative economies that are slowly emerging. Part of some of us in university institutions that are bewildered, and part of some of us in whatever new is emerging there. Part of us in a politics that seems to no longer serve even those of us it ever did serve. And part of us in newly growing visions of our mutually supportive communities. We are on all these thresholds. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, an arm here, a nose way over there. Basically, we're in a time when nobody knows where we're going. And if they claim to, they are probably not to be trusted. Jump off that bus. We are in a time of wandering, a time of meandering. How do we move together in a time of wandering? In her book, How to Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going, church organizational consultant Susan Beaumont writes about leading in liminal times, and her work is meant for congregations, but it sounds an awful lot to me like every other space we're living in right now also. She talks about some of the difficult patterns that emerge in in-between times. Anxiety rises because we're human and living amid ambiguity is hard. And often as anxiety rises, there's this sense of denial, powering through as though nothing has changed. Does that sound familiar since COVID? These patterns often involve reverting to status quo behaviors that are no longer serving us very well. She also names changing power dynamics in in-between times, where leaders who have been at the core move to the edges, and those who have been at the edges might move to the center. Another thing she warns about, listen to this, the emergence of tricksters in liminal times, charismatic figures who look like leaders but are incapable of giving and sharing or of participating well in democratic processes. Is it too gentle to think of him as a trickster? These times often also see a rejection of even solid, compassionate leadership by people who are suspicious of leadership. She writes, when people are anxious, they turn on their leaders, and we've seen this in our nation in some violent ways. Think of January 6th, 2021. The stakes are genuinely so high in liminal times. But as much as being in between can bring threatening dynamics, it also brings incredible possibility. One possibility Beaumont names is the spirit of communitas, which she calls a state of relationship that occurs in unstructured community, where hierarchies dissolve, people become equal, and the very soul of the community emerges as fellowship, spontaneity, and warmth, a new ethos of interrelatedness breaking forth where old structures of domination have crumbled. Liminal time is also ripe for innovation. We're more willing to re-examine, reinvent, and take risk when long-established structures and processes have unfrozen. And under the duress of living in between, we are inspired to rediscover our core values. When other things are crumbling, we find out what really matters to us at our core. Does some of this sound familiar too? I hope it does. Threshold times are ripe for transformation. When we can mitigate some of the threats of liminal space and lean into some of its possibilities, we do that with our radical presence, step by halting step, as we travel off the map and into the wilds of the in-between. Beaumont suggests that we can lead with radical presence by shifting our stance in three ways: from knowing to unknowing, slowing our thought processes, dwelling with questions, from advocating to attending, doing less and being more, finding stillness, observing so that we may engage more wisely. And third, moving from striving to surrender, trying less and opening more, releasing into what is unfolding without imposing order and control. These shifts in stance from knowing to unknowing, from advocating to attending, from striving to surrender, allow us to listen more carefully for our deep yearnings and the world's deep emergence. And then we are able to follow that yearning and that emergence bit by bit into a new world that is opening up before us. So how do we move well when nobody knows where we're going? How do we love well when nobody knows where we're going? We trickle slowly. We pause in still, deep pools. We flow with abandon. Maybe the call in this time is to move more like water, to love more like water. Not knowing where we're going, but yielding, carried along by new terrains, and like water, always shaping the terrain around us powerfully as we flow. I think one of the lessons water teaches us is that when we can move without seeking to control, we will actually find ourselves more powerful than we dreamed. Simply by following the flow to the sea, we shape landscapes. We build our world. And perhaps we arrive somewhere beyond where we'd ever even thought to dream. The Irish mystic and poet John O'Donohue writes in his very small but very full poem, Fluent, "I would love to live like the river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding." I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding. This is what it is to move like the water, to live like the river. It's to be carried and astonished and opened. Every year on the Sunday closest to January 1st, our congregation holds a ritual of release and resolve when we burn away what isn't serving us and choose a word for the year that can serve as a touchstone for our intention. And I was preparing for this month of exploring the theme of meandering, which is our theme for March. And I learned that meander is a scientific term for a bend in the stream. And I was reminded that the word I chose for this year was flow. I chose it for two reasons. Partly because I'm working on this big creative project, working on a book of poetic essays, and I really wanted to tap into that sense of creative flow. You know, the one I mean, the joyful state of being fully engrossed in creative act, such that everything else just falls away for a time and you're dunked in the river of art and experience. But I also chose flow as my word because I have no idea where we're going. And because I'm not great at surrendering to that sensation. And because I know in my bones that this is a moment for some surrender, for lying back in the stream, letting it carry me a while to wherever we're going next. I tend to be a big striver, failing to trust how powerful water is simply by flowing, effortless and inexorable. But that ceaseless striving is not where I want to live in these times. In times like this, that ceaseless striving is a path straight to burnout. An imposition of order on what wants to be wild and unformed, a walled-off place away from flow. I have been on a long march, and it is time now to wander. The liminal state of our world is calling me to that now. Perhaps it's calling all of us to that, each in our own very different, wandering, meandering way. Perhaps it is time to turn to the water for wisdom, the water which really does not try hard at all, which really just flows on, which allows, and which in that allowing shapes everything. In her book about the emergence of more just worlds, Facilitator and organizer Adrienne Marie Brown writes, "Water creates the ways for itself, moving with gravity, moving around obstacles, wearing down obstacles, reshaping the world. When there isn't an overt way forward, water seeps into the land, becomes a vapor in the sky, freezes into ice. When the time comes, water moves over the land in cloud form and nourishes elsewhere. And of course," she writes, "we humans are mostly water." I don't know where we're going, other than eventually to the sea and the soil and the deep aquifers below. I don't know where we're going. How beautiful, how free. Maybe we can all not know where we're going together. Meander like the water, delighted and surprised by our own unfolding. Maybe we'll gather by the river and learn there how to move well, how to be still, and how to roar forward, how to trickle along, and how to wear down stone. Perhaps we will gather by the river, and this is my deepest hope, perhaps together we will flow to whatever is next, a more beautiful world unfolding even now, carried by the surprise of our own unfolding. So will you join me in singing, "Shall We Gather at the River"? It's number 1046 in your teal hymnal. Let's rise or remain seated as you are most comfortable.
Now is the time in our service when we join in the spiritual practice of generosity, guiding our hearts away from the fear and scarcity all around us, and remembering that it is by sharing and supporting one another that we feel most human. This week's collection is a Faith to Action collection, and our March Faith to Action partner is our UUCC Sanctuary and Immigrant Justice team. During another musical offering from the choir, you can give with cash or check in the offering plate in person, or you can use the giving details in your order of service to give online or by text. But first, let's hear a little bit from the team about their work.
Good morning. I'm Allie Gassman. I'm the co-chair of the Sanctuary and Immigrant Justice Team. And I thought Lily and her kids would be here this morning, and she is on her way, I think. But I was relying on her to, to share with you, so I guess it's just me for now. So our team started up in 2016 when there was a lot of worry about people who were here and in the process of legalizing their paperwork and everything, and who were in danger of being deported at the time. In my paid work, I work with a lot of families who were very worried at that time. So eventually we went through the process. In 2017, our church voted to become a sanctuary church. There were churches all across the country who were hosting people who were in danger of being deported, and so we decided to join those churches. And we partnered also with Rockbridge Christian Church, who also, shortly after us, became an official sanctuary church. But in the end, we ended up not hosting anybody in that time, and we decided to pivot a little bit, and we decided to sponsor or help sponsor families who are seeking asylum. So our first family that we ended up supporting was the family of Yadira and Edler, whom many of you met. They are from Honduras, and they are really well settled now, and we still are able to support them. So with all the financial help that this church gives, Yadira's nephew died unexpectedly and tragically, so we were able to give some financial support from our committee to help with the funeral expenses. In 2021, we welcomed Lily and her two children, Lakshmi and Manuel, to Columbia, and they got to stay with Christine Heath for a while until they moved out into their own space. They have come a long way, and I have to say, it's like it costs a lot of money from lawyer fees to helping them settle with furniture and everything else that it involves, car, everything. Your donations over these years have been amazing and have allowed us to help this family in such significant ways. But I have to also say, it doesn't stop there. You guys have been so amazing, and just all the transportation provided, all the things you have given, like furniture, and just all the help, all the surrounding support that has just been so amazing. So Lily, Lakshmi, and Manuel just recently moved into their own apartment where they are now living all on their own. I think the court date is in 2027, if I remember correctly, so it's still a long journey from 2021. She actually came in 2020, crossed the border. The next day she gave birth. So yeah, it's really an amazing story. So anyway, 2020 to 2027, that's a long time to be in this liminal state. We just thank you so much for all your support in so many ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
How about that choir today? Wow, y'all. Oh my gosh. Just a quick reminder, if you'd like to join in the Bread for Our Neighbors service project, to find Susan at the blue tablecloth stewardship table in the greeting area to engage with that project after the service. And let us now share our closing words. May you go forth fluent like the river flows, carried by the surprise of your own unfolding. Go in blessing and be a blessing to a world that needs our care. And let us sing our benediction.